Today, we're going to be replacing the tactile switches on an Xbox Elite Series 2 controller. If your RB or LB bumper is either not responding at all or only responding sometimes, then this is likely the video for you. Unfortunately, the quality of the switches for the bumpers on the Elite Series 2 controllers went downhill significantly, and this issue is pretty common. As always, I will leave a link to the kit down in the description below, and by purchasing it, it directly supports the channel and is greatly appreciated. The ones in the kit are actually not aftermarket. They are the same model switches that Microsoft used on the Elite Series 1 controllers, which are much better quality and fortunately fit and work perfectly. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the repair. In the kit, you'll first find a metal prying tool. I tested multiple tools for opening the faceplate, and I found that this one is by far the best one for the job. The best place to start would be at the top of the controller. There are 13 clips and 2 pieces of double-sided tape that hold the faceplate on. By prying upward next to each of the clips, it should make easy work of removing it. Be a little careful, as it is possible to break some of the clips if prying too forcefully. After we get that removed, there are 6 T8 security torque screws to remove. One of them is hidden under the white sticker. Next, we will be removing the metal domes. They are screwed on, so to remove these, grab a thumbstick and twist counterclockwise. They can be a little difficult to remove because I think they use a little bit of thread lock, but with enough force, they should come undone. To remove the backplate, I like to pry up near each rumble pack. And to remove the motherboard and rumble packs, there will be 2 small cables, 2 T6 torque screws, and 8 rumble pack wires that will need to be removed. So on these controllers, I'm pretty confident they used lead-free solder on everything, which either means we will need to use a higher temperature or add some 60-40 solder to it. What's been working for me is using around 400 or 450 degrees Celsius and adding the 60-40 solder. Remove the rumble packs. After all that is taken care of, the best way I've found to remove the motherboard is lifting it up over the left post first, then giving it a slight turn and twist to lift over the right post. Don't forget the headphone jack. Holding in the board with the switches is 4 T6 torque screws and the bumpers. It's probably better to remove the bumpers first, but removing the screws first will also work. The centerpiece can be removed by prying up on the 2 tabs. The bumpers are held in a little differently than other Xbox controllers, but a little outward and upward tug can get one of the bumper sides loose. Next is getting the front board that has the switches onto a helping hand. There's a few ways to remove these switches. The best way to remove them would be with a desoldering iron or perhaps a heat gun, but since most people won't have either of those, I'll show a couple other ways. I've tried removing the solder with a solder sucker and wick, and I was able to remove most of the solder this way, but there always seems to be a little bit I can't get. I admit I am not the best at this though, so if you're confident in your desoldering skills, then it may be worth a try doing it this way first. I did, however, have luck after chopping the switch up into 4 pieces and then removing it piece by piece that way. So this is a decent option in my opinion. The final way I will show is by adding a lot of solder and heating all 4 pins at once while giving a gentle pull on the switch with some pliers. If I didn't have a desoldering iron, this would be my preferred method. I'll definitely be replacing both of these crappy switches while the controller is apart. After removing them, simply remove the solder with either the solder sucker or wick. Both work just as well. Then clean up all of the residual flux with some isopropyl alcohol. Finally, we're ready to install the new switches. We can simply push them through. They're designed in a way to stay in place after inserting them, but just double check to make sure that they're still flush. Once they're in, then solder each pin. You could add extra flux at this point if it helps you, but because the board is clean and the solder I'm using is rosin core, there really isn't any need on my end. Once installed, it's important to double check everything is working correctly. We can do this easily by connecting both boards together and then the USB-C cable. Then plug it into either a computer or the Xbox. On the computer, I like to use gamepadtester.com, and on the Xbox, the Game Controller Tester app is good as well, which is also available for download on a Windows PC. Everything looks good, so it's time to put everything back together. It's essentially the reverse procedure of taking everything apart. Because I wasn't careful and all the buttons flew around everywhere, I'll be putting those back together first. Then it's time for the front board to be put into place and screwing back in the 4 T6 Torx screws. After that, there are these little plastic paper type things. I'm not exactly sure what they're called, but I remember seeing somewhere that they are for wear resistance. After placing those in, we can put the bumper back together. Make sure the sync button is aligned. It should all just snap into place. To put the motherboard back in, we'll first need to put in the headphone jack. I like to bend the pins up a little bit to give them a little more life. Then place it with the pins facing upward and then connecting to the motherboard. The 2 cables can now be snapped in and fit into place. Don't forget to secure the motherboard with the 2 T6 Torx screws. With the controller face down like this, the larger rumble pack goes on the right and the smaller one on the left. This time, Microsoft decided not to label the polarity for the rumble pack connections on the board, but that's not a problem. It's the same as most of the other controllers. The trigger rumble pack positive gray wire goes all the way on top, followed by the negative black wire. And then the hand rumble pack positive red wire goes above the negative black wire. Once the rumble pack wires are soldered, it's time to screw the metal dome pieces back on. Of course, using the thumbstick again should help with this. Try to tighten it as much as possible because if it's not very tight, it could come loose during gameplay. Next, it's time for the back piece. Depressing the RT and LT buttons slightly help it slide into place. Then it's screwing back in the 6 T8 Torx screws. And finally, the front cover can be snapped into place. One final test to make sure everything is fine. Looks like everything is working great. Thanks so much for watching. A like and a sub go a long way for me, and any support is greatly appreciated. A lot more videos to come. Stay tuned and enjoy the rest of your day.